strengthen both of us.
Hi, my name's Shayna. I'm an addict.
Hi, Shayna.
My sober date is March 10th, 2015. So that means on Sunday I celebrated 4 years. Thank you. I have a sponsor who has a sponsor who has a sponsor, and so on and so forth. And we all work steps, and we all have worked the steps. We all work the steps in our daily lives. I have a few service commitments, and that's my opening. So what it used to be like. Here's where we start. So I was born. No, I'm not going to start there. But I was talking with my mom today, and I was like, my life really was unmanageable from the moment that I was born, because my mom always tells me about how when I actually came out, I wouldn't cry, and then the doctor was just like, yeah, she's fine. After they smack you a couple of times, they're just like, she's fine. She's just obviously super stubborn, which is true and still holds true today. But so day one, my life was unmanageable. I grew up in a small hick town up north of Saratoga, where the cows outnumber the people. My parents split when I was 4 years old. My dad moved to New York City, and he went to chiropractic college. And so that left my mom and my brand new baby brother, who was supposed to be a sister, because that's what my parents told me. Resentment at the age of 4, and myself to live in this podunk town. And my mom had to go back to work. She didn't work the whole time that I was growing up, so she went back to work, and we spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house. And that was basically my growing up. My dad eventually moved back up here from the city because he likes the Adirondacks for some reason. And, he wanted to be closer to his kids, and he opened a practice, and I was like, cool, because I don't like living with my mom. She has a lot of rules, and I don't like them. So I instantly moved in with my dad at the age of 13, who had no idea really how to raise a daughter who was super high maintenance. And so I kind of just got everything that I asked for without any questions and without any repercussions. So my dad met a woman. They got married. I got a stepbrother and a stepsister out of that deal. And my stepsister she's younger than me, but she was kind of a badass, and she was the courage behind a lot of things that I wanted to do, because she would be like, yeah, let's just do it, just climb out the window, let's just go. And I'm like, okay, you go first. So if there was a chance of getting caught, she was getting caught first, because I was just gonna feel it out and see if anybody was gonna wake up when we were falling out of the second story window. And she usually got caught, and I was just I don't know, I was in bed, I don't even know what happened. Oh my God, she fell out of the window? That's horrible. And she was like, argh. But she taught me how to smoke my first cigarette, because I was doing it wrong. I was not inhaling properly. So the power that I felt from smoking that cigarette, sitting at Stewart's that was three houses down from my house, thinking and my dad's chiropractic practice. So here I am sitting in Stewart's smoking cigarettes, thinking yeah, somebody's gonna see me being a badass. And that's me I was 15 then. But so that was about the time that I had my first drink. I wasn't getting along with the stepmom number one, and the kids, and my brother and my dad, because it's basically if it wasn't my way, then I wanted nothing to do with it, and like everybody else can, you know, screw off or whatever. So I moved back in with my mom because that was, you know, the obvious choice, because things would be different. And so then I was back in Gansevoort, the podunk town, where there's nothing to do. And the only thing there was to do is these guys that I went to school with, they built their own cabin, and they would have bonfires and kegs and beer and pot and all of the shit that, you know, probably 15-year-olds shouldn't have in the back of this cornfield. So I'd go there with my girlfriends, and I was like, this is great. And that's where I had my first beer. And it was horrible. It was disgusting. It tasted like piss. I mean, I've never actually tried piss, but you know, like probably what piss might taste like. Like it was just disgusting. And so I drank it really, really fast. I just like chugged that shit and was like, oh, like something is happening. Something magical is happening to me. And like, you know, I got this feeling, and like I got this power that came over me, and I was like, yeah, let's do this. Let's hang out with these guys that smell like cow manure, and I don't even care. So I did every night of the summer. And then I had this friend who didn't live in the podunk town, and he ran soundboards at crappy bars for crappy bands, and he was like, hey, do you want to go with me? And here I am, this cute little 16-year-old girl who's just like, yeah, I'll totally go with you. And I did. And they were like, ooh, a cute little 16-year-old girl in our bar. Let's feed her alcohol. And that began my bar career at the age of 16. So I would go to all these different places, and, you know, just the drinking, and then the drugs would come out, and I was allowed in all of these places because I was with the band. And like everybody knew that I was with the band, and they were like, oh yeah, she's fine. She's with the band. And honestly, until I was like 20, that's what I did. Every night I drank. Every night, you know, I would put substances in my body. It was kind of like if you put it in front of me, like I was down to try it 1, 2, 3 times at least to see if, you know, I got to really be sure that I like it and or don't like it. So 20, like at the age of 20, my best friend from high school writes me this letter from Japan because he's in the military. Oh, I love you. You're the love of my life. Blah, 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 bullshit. And I'm like, okay, yep. What's in it for me? Well, let's move to California and get married. And I was like, okay. So we did. And he was gone for, you know, a lot of the time. So I was left there with nobody. So I had to make friends with all of the women who also had nobody. So what we would do is, like, they all had kids, and we'd put the kids in one apartment. We'd go in the other apartment. We'd have drugs, booze, whatever, and baby monitors, you know, in case any of their kids woke up. And that's what we did on the military base. And, you know, I was exposed to a lot of different substances in California, which was really cool because it was like so ahead of the drug game in, you know, upstate New York. And I was like, yo, I'm so much cooler out here. And I just felt like, you know, drugs and alcohol made me 100% cooler than, you know, this little whatever girl from Gansevoort, New York, which everybody was like, what, you know, Gesundheit, like, what did you say? And they made me feel like a better person. So fast forward, blah, blah, I had some kids with this guy. And during that time, I didn't like drink or drug. And that's honestly the only time in my life that I didn't. And I couldn't tell you exactly the reason why, but I just felt like, it was morally correct. Although later on I do morally so incorrect things that I'm just like, what is wrong with you? But anyway, so then I kicked my husband out, and I was a stay-at-home mom, and I'm left with these 2 small children. I had a brand new baby and a 2-year-old, and I was like, yes, he's finally gone. I've kicked him out. And then I was like, oh shit, what am I supposed to do now? Like, I don't have a job. How am I supposed to have income? We live upstairs from his brother. All of the vehicles are in his name. And then I'm just like, shit. So I go to social services. They're like, we'll do this, that, and the other thing for you. And, then get a job, blah, blah, blah. So I do all the things they ask. And I'm back to work. I'm just like, balls to the wall, back to work. And I'm right in it like I had always been. Because I'm an all or nothing type of gal. It's either, we're doing this big or we don't do it at all. And so I'm back at work, and I basically go from being a salesperson to the manager in like a month, because I'm just like, get out my way. Here I come. I need to make some money. And then, I'm putting in all the hours. I'm working in a mall. And so the kid's father is like, oh, you've been working so hard, and, let me take the kids for the weekend for you. And I was like, yes. And, something in the back of my head really should have been like, he has never taken these kids even when you lived together. Like, he wouldn't even take the kids for me to take a shower when we lived together. So I should have known, but I didn't. So he takes the kids. I go to pick them up, and he says, get the fuck off my property. You can't have these kids. I filed papers, and you will see me in court if you want to see your children. Now here's the kicker. Hold on to your hats, kids. My husband at the time works for the police department, as does his brother, who's a sergeant, as does his sister-in-law, who's a secretary for the judge. So what does this mean? It means I'm fucked, 100%, 110% fucked. And so I have to go to court in order to see my kids. Well, my kids are my world. Like, they have not left me at all, except for, when I was forced to go to work. So where does this lead me? How do I know how to feel better? Well, I know if I put substances in my body, I'm going to feel a lot better. So I call up like these weird random people that I haven't even talked to in a super long time. And like, I get a hold of them, and I just get right back in it. And it's, full Borg. We're going 10,000 miles per hour. I'm like, give me all the substances, because I cannot have feelings right now. Because if I have feelings, like, things are going to happen, and they're not going to be good. They're going to involve handcuffs, assault charges, maybe murder, like lots of things. So I had to, block those emotions. And then that is what I did. And I did that for a really long time. And I didn't have custody of my kids for a really long time. And I only had visitation, and, it was shitty. And I was a shitty parent, because I chose to do those drugs and not feel the feelings of the pain and the hurt of not having the kids in my life, and not being there to like help them grow up, and to help them, make decisions, and to hear how their day is when they come home from school. So, there comes a point where like I go to like this counseling, because they diagnosed me as postpartum depression after my son was born. And they put me on, a bunch of antidepressants and whatnot, which leads to like, oh, you have bipolar and 100 other mental illnesses, and like they do for so many people. And I'm like, okay, cool, yep. So I'm in counseling, because you have to be in counseling in order to get the meds and da-da-da-da-da. And they're like, hey, every time you take a urine screen, like, you're popping positive for like a ton of shit. So maybe you should go to rehab. And I'm like, well, no, drug addicts go to rehab, and I don't have a drug problem. Like, I just casually do drugs here and there, and it's not a problem. And then, they kept saying it over and over and over, and then I lost my job because I shattered my ankle and had to have reconstructive surgery. So, therefore I couldn't work. And I was like, all right, yeah, sure, I'll go to rehab, because what the hell else do I have to do? And so that was my first rehab. And it was about 2 weeks in that I realized I wasn't there because I smoked a lot of pot. It took a group to tell me that, like, you do all of the other drugs and drink excessively all of the time. You just and I'm like, no, like, a drug addict does the same drug all day, every day. That's what a real drug addict does. Like, I'm schooling these people. A real drug addict does all of the drugs consistently. And I don't. I split it up, do a little coke here, do a little, morphine here, do whatever. And so, no, I'm just a casual user. And, yeah, they were not thrilled with that response, and they completely shot that down. So 2 weeks in, I decided, okay, maybe, I have a little bit of a problem, and maybe I'll start listening in these groups a little bit better. So that's where I was first exposed to meetings like Alcoholics Anonymous and STEPS, and I was like, this seems like a crock of shit. I'll just sit here and listen. The one guy from the outside meeting would bring me instant coffee. So, we had a negotiation, and that worked out pretty good. Anyway, needless to say, rehab did not go well for me. So I got out, and I went to a different fellowship, and I did a ton of service, and I went to all of the meetings, and 18 months later, 2 days shy of 18 months, I decided to relapse on acid, which I had never done before in my life. And then that kept me out for a really long time. And so when I had shattered my ankle and had the reconstructive surgery, they gave me an unlimited supply of Vicodin and Percocet, and 100,000 refills on a bottle that was the size of one of those 5-gallon water jugs. I just sling it over my shoulder, leaving the pharmacy, and then calling up my people so that I could get rent money, because I needed to sell some of that stuff too. And so I'm back there, and that's kind of where I lived for a while, just doing drugs and doing nothing and selling drugs to get money, and that's about it. And then I talked to somebody on Facebook, and I'm like, this is where it gets a little tricky, because I don't recommend coming into the rooms this way. But so I went on this date, and this guy he had some time in Alcoholics Anonymous, and he says to me, we're at a restaurant, and he's like, oh, if you want a drink, go ahead and have a drink. And I was like, oh shit, no, let me tell you, if I have a drink, I'm gonna end up in handcuffs, and one drink is I don't do a drink, I don't do anything. And then he was like, thinking about things. So then date number one, I kind of vomited everything of my life onto him. So, the wheels were turning. So second date, I don't even remember what he did, but he had one of those informational pamphlets, much like the beautiful array of pamphlets we have over there. But this one said like something like, you might be an alcoholic if, here's 22 questions, answer this shit. And he was like holding it over here, and he's like, he asked me the question, can you have just one drink? And I was like, why? Why would I have just one drink? Like, no. Like maybe one box of wine, because I'm classy like that. But no, I don't have just one drink. And he's like, do you want to go to an AA meeting? And I was like, sure, because like I really liked this guy in his snakeskin boots and his espresso drinking without 6 pounds of sugar like all of the other guys that I've dated. And we went to a meeting, and it was like my higher power was there, and I didn't even know that I had one, because we were reading the part in the book where it talks about the different types of alcoholics. And I honestly didn't think I was an alcoholic. And come to find out, I figured out that night that alcohol brings me to a drug every single solitary time, without a doubt. If you put alcohol in my hand, I will put it in my body, and then I will be, smoking crack, doing coke, shooting dope, whatever the fuck you want to put in front of me, I'm going to do it, because that's how that sequence goes for me. I have this disease of addiction, and I cannot control it unless I have, cured it with a spiritual awakening. So what had to happen for me was I needed to find a sponsor, and I needed to work the steps. Now, I was absolutely 110% sure that this program was not going to work for me, because I am not like all of you people. I am terminally unique, and also not really a drug addict, like I said before. So this program was not going to work for me, but I was going to do it because, I liked the camaraderie, and I liked this guy that I was hanging out with. So I started working with a sponsor, and we got to step 1, and she's like, well, can you admit that you're powerless? And I was like, no, I'm not going to admit that I'm powerless. Like, I am not powerless. Like, did you see the shit on the news that I did? The last thing I am is powerless. And she's just like, okay. And then, it was probably like we met about 3 different times. And she was, do you think you're powerless? Like, maybe, we'll go this route. Do you think you're powerless? Nope. No, not powerless. And, like, I was ready to fight her, but she was really nice. And then, so she finally says to me, well, can you just maybe admit that, like, if you put drugs or alcohol into your body, then maybe you just don't have control over what you are going to do? And I was like, all right, yeah. And she was like, okay. And like, we knew that my life was unmanageable. So like, okay, step 1, like I said in the beginning, like from birth, my life was unmanageable. And so we got through like step 1, and then we're, progressing nicely through the steps, and we get to step 4, and like, I feel like my step 4 is a little bit legendary, because resentments, yeah, I got a few. So when I started writing out my 4-step, and like people were like, your 4-step, blah, 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 it's so scary. And then I was like, okay. And like, so I started writing it. And I mean, there were times where I was homicidal, I was suicidal, I wanted to drink, I wanted to drug, I wanted to like stab small children running outside the front of my house. Like it was a bad scene at times. So what I had to do was, go to a fellow addict's home and sit there supervised and write. I would sit at my sponsor's house for 8 hours at a time, and her amazing husband, would be very accommodating and like make tea. And I sat with another sponsee sister at times, and we would just sit there and we would write. And if we needed to process things, we processed things. And it was amazing. So then I finally get to that step 5 where I shared the whole thing with her. And it was really cool because like I felt that extreme, like time's up. I felt that extreme burden just lifted off of me and like thrown into like the great abyss of I don't even know where the fuck it went, nor do I care, but it is not here. It does not live here anymore. And, you know, that allowed me to have a spiritual awakening. Like one of my first spiritual awakenings was in my step 4 when I was doing all of that stuff. Like I had a higher power start talking to me and like helping me and guiding me and loving me and doing amazing things for me that I can't do for myself and that I can't explain in any other way other than something greater than me is, you know, running interference or whatever. That might have been a football reference. I don't really know though. But so then, you know, going through the rest of the steps and, you know, 9 is another big one, like making amends. And, you know, I was really nervous to make my first amends, which was to my mother. And I cried about it like every day leading up to actually doing it. And then I did it, and it was like the greatest moment of my life. And like she turned to me and said things that she wanted to like apologize for that had happened in my life. And it was fucking beautiful. And then, you know, the same thing with my father. And the same thing with other amends that I did. And like my kids are teenagers now. So like they you know, they deserve amends as well. And that was amazing because the air is cleared. And I thought that I had good relationships with everybody in my family before. And like, now they're just like through the roof and everything is just 100% better. And, you know, I don't have substances to rely on to, in order to be able to get through my day and in order to like feel emotions. And I actually do that now, feel emotions, which is something that I never did. It was the scariest, craziest, most absurd thing that I thought would happen in my life. And I basically cried for the first 1.5 years of my sobriety. But I think that was because I didn't have feelings for so long before. So like they eventually had to come out. And then like I'll wrap this up here. So like my higher power is the most important thing. Every day I do, and I thought that this was completely insane because like I was raised in an extreme religious background, and I was like not down with God or religion or blah 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 whatever. But the cool thing is that like the big book tells me that I can choose my own conception of God. So it can be whatever, it can be this beautiful cup in my hand. Maybe it's greater than me. It is, because it quenches my thirst. It's filled with water from Schenectady. So I talk to my God every morning and throughout the day and every night. And my life is 100,000% better. I stay connected to this community by doing things like, you know, making coffee at this meeting when, you know, nobody's here to make coffee, or, you know, printing out meeting lists, or, you know, going to area and not saying I'm not going to volunteer for a position and then volunteering for a position because in my heart I feel that that's what I need to do. And then like, you know, starting a meeting in Schenectady, like that. This meeting was started by me and a group of people that I care about, and here it is almost 3 years later, still helping people with addictions every Thursday. And like, we have a great time, and I love it, and I love that everybody is here. And I am so excited to celebrate 4 years with you guys because, like, honestly, I can't tell you anything positive that I have done for 4 years straight in my life. So today is a great day. I really feel blessed, even though I hate it when people say that shit. But I do, and I am so grateful for this program because it really did save my life. And if you don't have a sponsor and you don't have a book, I strongly suggest you get both of those things and just grab someone that has read the book and can help you go through that book and do it, even if you don't think that you're powerless. That's all I got. Thanks.